And of course, Trudy, we had that decision last week on award wages. The chamber, head of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Andrew McKellar, was out there saying it's increasingly difficult for the RBA to get inflation back down. He points to the issue of this wage increase. That will be a line ball call for a lot of small businesses, whether they shed staff or take on and employ people. We saw, of course, that slight uptick in the unemployment numbers recently. Add in the fact you've got this World Bank report. I know Katie Gallagher tries to say there's nothing like a recession on our horizon, but the World Bank's annual report out yesterday, I think it was, is saying the global economy is in a precarious position. I mean, I know it's winter, but it feels pretty bleak economically as well.
It certainly does. And the problem here is this massive wage issue that has been highlighted by Phil Lowe today on multiple occasions this morning, making it crystal clear that if everyone tries to chase the sort of wage increase that was issued by the Fair Work Commission last week, we find ourselves in real trouble. That it's a difficult message, but he's trying to make it publicly. And it doesn't seem like the government's willing to actually back him in on that. The Treasurer was asked on Sky News today, do you also share that view that we can't see wage growth without the uptick in productivity trying to chase inflation? And he just says he doesn't want to blame workers. And you can see politically why they say that. They went to the election promising to get wages moving. It's a difficult message for them to sell, but it does make his life harder if they just continue to see this massive wage bills.
And look, James, your point before about the per capita negative growth, we're on the cusp of 750,000 new arrivals coming into the economy between now and the end of next year's financial year. So that's a huge influx of people. We've got pressure on housing, as we know, and we're getting these very sluggish, almost minuscule growth numbers today. Add in the fact you've got, we'll get to aged care in a moment, we had that aged care increase for non-taxpayer funded people, but the money came out of the taxpayers' budget, and talk of a 25% increase for childcare workers today. None of this is sustainable.
No, none of it is sustainable, and that's the really scary thing here. And it's not just all of these areas that you just, highlighted, Peta, but it's energy as well, the thing that keeps the whole country moving. We've seen these reports today that we're not building anywhere near the renewables we need as all of these coal-fired power stations come off and the gas isn't built and snowy hydro doesn't happen. So on issue after issue after issue, we are heading right for a cliff of unsustainability on wages, on productivity, on migration, on housing, and everything they're doing with all of these things on energy is to make things more expensive and harder to do. Now, I don't know how the economy gets out of this, but it feels to me like we are very close to a real tailspin here that we need to pull out of immediately.
All right, let's go to that speech today. I mentioned there, Aged Care Minister Annika Wells at the Press Club in Canberra. The same Aged Care Minister, I might add, that said we'd have 24/7 registered nurses in homes by July. Experts at the time in the campaign said, look, it's not tenable. Well, it's not, and it's not going to happen either. She's calling for baby boomers to do more to fix Australia's aged care system. Have a listen.
We must act now. The baby boomers are coming. Within a decade, our nation will have, for the first time in history, more people aged over 65 than under 18. There will be greater pressures on the entire community, and we must be innovative to address this challenge, and we need a funding model that is sustainable.
Now, I don't like this talk from the Minister, Trudy. I mean, these people have paid taxes all their lives. They've already been hit with a lot of superannuation changes in the last 15 or so years as they head into retirement. I don't expect that reaction's been favourable because, we've just paid out of the taxpayer budget 15% pay rises for workers, but it's a soak the rich now if you want to go into an aged care home.
Well, I think it was really interesting when you saw the questioning of Annika Wells at Press Club today, the aged care minister. She did not rule out leaving a pretty wide door open to a Medicare-style levy to fund aged care going forward, potentially having more user pays in this system. What they've done is set up a task force now. It will report back. She's the chair of it by December. It then goes to government. They're trying to get a model of how to fund this system going forward. We probably were let down by the Royal Commission squibbing the question of funding. The two commissioners couldn't agree the way forward. They proposed proposed two separate models, so we didn't really have a clear path forward. It's a huge conversation we need to have. We know this is one of the top 5 spending pressures on the federal budget. It's not going anywhere. That generational language, I imagine, was designed to drum up a headline, but yeah, it's a huge conversation the country needs to actually have.
And this is to you again, Trudy. I mean, I pick up that point you talked about the Medicare levy. There is no Medicare levy. It's a tax loading dressed up as a levy. Levies come and then levies go. This thing's been around now for nearly 20 years. And of course, that's where they put the extra additional cost. It's gone up, I think, 2 or 3 times in relation to the NDIS. It funds healthcare as well. If they throw aged care into it, if you're on a high tax threshold, I reckon you'll be close to paying over 50% tax if they go down this path.
Well, and this is the big political problem for them. I don't think they can go there, despite the fact she's left the door open to this today, which you'd imagine we're going to have a clean up in the next 24 hours potentially from a more senior minister. But they've already promised no new taxes. To do this term is political suicide. But I think maybe admirable of the minister to leave things open, not to immediately rule them out, to look at this and see what is the best way to fund it going forward. But on that tax point, it does put a bigger burden of those paying already a lot in tax in this country.
I'd say to the minister who's got her training wheels on, and get into that boondoggle of a snowy 2.0. You've got at least $18 billion there. Scrap the project, put that into nursing homes, and we'd all be a lot better off. Hey, James, $1 billion goes to the ABC. They're not driven by eyeballs, we know that. I mean, not many people watch them, but we all pay for them. What are they doing advertising?
Well, yeah, isn't this extraordinary? And not only that they're advertising, but their advertising budget of, I think, $44 million had to come via a Freedom of Information request. So here we have, Peta, this great set of ironies here. You know, the ABC is hiding the amount it's advertising, but it's still advertising, even though, as you say, it's not driven by clicks and eyeballs and ears and all of that. And even with all of that advertising, their ratings are still declining. So I don't know. This, I think, should be a huge wake-up call in all seriousness to the ABC, to ABC management, to the government, to the opposition, that the ABC is not fulfilling its charter. It's not providing what people want. Clearly, it's gone down this whole, all these weird identity politics paths and this inner city path and everything else we've talked about many times on this show. And of course, you know, you can roll that in glitter as much as you want, but nobody's necessarily going to watch. And that's what we're seeing.
Thank you both for your time, James and Trudy, as always.